Hi, and welcome to CAMEO, the virtual learning series for arts, media, and entertainment teachers from AME Institute. I'm Ashley Adams, and I want to welcome you to today's program discussing early career and the tech industries. We have an incredible group from Snap, Meta, and Amazon, and I'd like to welcome our partner from Snap, Stacey Long Genovese, who is here to facilitate and introduce the rest of the panel. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this afternoon. We are very, very excited to share some insights with you. And first, I want to begin by thanking all of you for the incredible job that you do raising our next generation of leaders. I am a parent of a teenager, and I am wholeheartedly thankful for all of the work that you do. And I'm happy that you're interested in listening to what we might have to say. You're going to hear some diverse perspectives from various people in the tech industry. I myself have a background in academia. I was in university settings for a very long time, 20 plus years, teaching about teaching. And then I moved over to tech. I went to Amazon and AWS, and now I'm at Snapchat. And with me today are some incredible tech geniuses who are going to share with you their experiences as well. And I think worth noting that we'll have experience that we're sharing both in working in tech, but also being on hiring panels and leading teams. So our perspective really spans that full space of who are the types of folks we're looking to hire, who are the types of people we see really succeeding in tech, and what types of skills do we as a group agree or even disagree on that we think are needed for the group. So, without further ado, I'm going to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves, give a little history about where they came from, what brought them into tech, and let's see, I'll have Kelsey join us first.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kelsey Kendall Kirkpatrick, and I am a senior manager of talent management at Amazon, which is specifically focused on internal talent processes. So supporting an employee once they join our fellow ranks as an Amazonian. I've got over 10 years, so a decade of experience in talent, and I've been solely an HR professional my entire career, but definitely focused for the past 8 years on helping to enable products to bring us to scale when it comes to employee-facing talent experiences, as well as, again, guiding and coaching and leading managers at scale to support their employees more locally. So really been fortunate throughout my career to work with a variety of non-tech and tech employees. My last role was supporting over 400,000 employees, and I have now transitioned to support our devices and services, as well as our AI-focused organizations. So if you speak to Alexa, I'm not going to say Echo, because mine will pick up, but those are the devices that the employees I support are building.
Thank you, Kelsey.
All right.
Go for it, Benny.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Benny Thomas. I'm a global creative strategist in the business marketing group at Meta in New York. And I essentially, what I do is position and market our platform and our various products and the family of apps to businesses of all sizes, large, medium, and small. So what we really are is the conduit between, we like to think of ourselves as a company that's all about creating and enriching human connections. And specifically, what I do and what my department does is to find and enrich deeper connections between businesses, communities, and the people on the platform. Before this job, this is my first job in technology, actually. I have to say, I've spent my entire career in advertising, and I've done many, many things in creative advertising. I started as a copywriter because I couldn't get into art school, and then I became a creative director in India and in Singapore in Asia, and then I switched into marketing, and I became a strategic planner, which is essentially a brand strategist, and I've led brand strategy teams around the world for about 25 years now on all kinds of businesses, from automotive to technology to finance to spirits, personal care, education, you name it. And I'm also recently, in the last 4 years, a teacher. I'm a adjunct professor of brand strategy in the master's program at City College up in Harlem.
Wonderful. So as you can see, we'll look forward to your questions. You've got nice, diverse information sharing up here. And I think worth noting is that there's not always a straight line. In fact, I would argue there's rarely actually a straight line from graduation into career choice and then career path. All of us have had pretty windy roads. One of the things I think is becoming more common is that people are transitioning at various points in their careers. So one skill set I'll recommend is finding a passion and then creating a career around that passion, because then you end up having this really great story and mapping your day-to-day work in with your story. I work in augmented reality today. If you'd have asked me that 10 years ago, it didn't even really exist, right? So I couldn't have said I wanted to work in augmented reality, but I didn't know any augmented reality before I got the job. So a lot of our learning is on the job, without a doubt. All right, the first question I'm going to have for our panelists is what are the skills and qualities that you look for when hiring young talent into an entry-level position, for example? Kelsey, would you like to go first?
Yeah, happy to dive in. We have a lot of intensive hiring practices at Amazon, as some of you may have heard. I think I would start by grounding on exactly what Stacey said, which is that the most important thing for students is to really find their passion areas, because that's truly what's going to drive where they go in their career. And exactly what department or what role they end up in is a little bit more ambiguous, I would say. So going back to the specific qualities that we look for, first is absolutely cultural fit to the company. I think that this is really important for any student to think about is, do my core values align to the values of the company? And I think that especially at Amazon, we are very true to our leadership principles. Those are our core values, and folks have to embody those day to day. And those who really thrive and feel comfortable and happy in their environment are typically the ones aligning to those core values. The second, I would say, from a more specific skill quality perspective that we look for with tech candidates, sometimes even non-tech candidates, is first problem solving. Sometimes that comes with creative problem solving, but also either technical or functional problem solving. Curiosity, a growth mindset. There's always changes in the tech industry, especially. And so, to Stacey's point, something that exists tomorrow may not exist today, and we have to keep that in mind as far as what are we willing to do differently, what are we willing to take on as a project or a new initiative. Third is the self-learning element. So all of our tech employees have some elements of self-taught code or self-taught technical capability that they've gone out and done on their own, either through educational coursework or even just learning from their peer group. And so I think finding folks who are open to and interested in continuous learning throughout their career is huge. And finally, collaboration. Amazon is very well known for being a highly collaborative culture. It is one that we absolutely look for, because the way that, again, we learn, we grow, and we deliver is not only individuals, but through others. So I'd say from a high level, those were the skills and qualities that I've especially seen as we look for, but with that most important part of that cultural and core value alignment.
That's right on point. Benny, is there anything you'd like to add? Is there any new?
There's very little I can add to that incredibly comprehensive list, but I will say I've always looked at it as two different, or I've always looked for two different sets of faculties, if you will. One is the kind of faculty that will make you good at the specific job that you are being hired for. The other is one that will make you successful in the organization, which Kelsey also touched on, and in your career. For the first one, I think, and they go back and forth, but primarily for the first one, for what will make you good at your job? In my case, I've always hired people into creative roles, and so the number one attribute I look for is curiosity. Just incredible amount of curiosity about anything and everything. I've had the best kinds of candidates are the ones who come, and you can see that they're from a certain background and a certain lifestyle or a certain geographical area or a certain ethnicity, and yet they will talk to you about a project they've done that has nothing to do with any of that, right? That just goes into some other culture or some other something that they're not, that they have no direct experience of, but they just wanted to go there and learn about that. I was talking to a girl just the other day who just randomly decided to learn an Indian language, which I'm from India, and it's not a particularly popular language even in India. And I was like, and she's like Italian American and from New Jersey, and I was like, that is the kind of that's the kind of spirit that gets you there, and that curiosity then allows you to do the second thing, which I look for, which is the ability to bring heterogeneous ideas together, which really is the definition of creativity, right? It's not, you are never creating anything ab ovo. You're not creating anything fresh. Everything that had to be invented is invented. What you're doing is bringing two ideas that had hitherto not been put together so that you look and go, oh wow, that's incredible. So you need curiosity to be able to actually connect one to the other. In terms of what will make you successful in your career, and I think this is the theme that I'd like to just expand upon in this conversation, is the ability to dance with change, really, because there is no doubt that you're going to have to do what we did just before this meeting started, which is reboot, or what I had to do, reboot the app so that I could come back and hear Ashley speak. I think those reboots, I've had three or four in my career. I think all of you have had that. I think they're going to be 5 or 10 in the careers of these young people. So, and you have no idea what that reboot is going to be. Artificial intelligence is going to take you to a whole other place where nobody in the world, including Sam Altman, can predict that, right? So all you can do is be open and ready and balanced to find your passion and to go deep into that and use that to flow with it. So I think curiosity on the one hand, and the ability to coast with change. Uh,
Adapt.
yeah.
That's great feedback. It's funny. My father had the same job for 48 years. And that was the model previously, right? We became extreme experts in our area. We demonstrated excellence in that area, and then we maintained the same place or type of job. And I think those days are fairly done. What we're really moving toward now, especially in tech, is this ability to adapt on a really regular basis. Um, in fact, I don't know how much we'll touch on this today, but there's various interview processes that try and dig into these qualities that both Kelsey and Benny have suggested. And there's something called the STAR method, STAR. You can look it up later. We can give you links. My next question is gonna come into how teachers can help with this, but essentially these interview processes, Kelsey alluded to the in-depth process at Amazon, and it is, in fact, I can't tell you how much I love it. Whenever I'm preparing for any other job interview, I use that STAR method because it helps me really understand the values that I bring and the skills that I bring to the table to really help me demonstrate myself, right? So my question for you is, I'll start with Kelsey. How do you think teachers can prepare students to be able to demonstrate these skills that you've mentioned? And, hint, you can probably help narrow in on how they share this in their interview process too.
Yeah, no, I think that one of the most important lead ups to the interviewing process is all of that rich interaction that students get with their teachers. And I remember my own teacher that really inspired me. And it's interesting because that was what sparked moving from what my education was, which was operations and supply chain management, into human resources, because I had a teacher who was teaching HR courses, and she really inspired me, and she was able to relay what is this functional space, and what are some of the opportunities there. So I think that's a really huge part, is just finding those students that really connect deeply to those functional areas that you own and that you teach, and that you help them. I also think the other piece is the preparation for interviews and for the workplace is something that we all have an opportunity to learn more about. It was something I wasn't prepared for from an interview perspective, and really setting myself up to take on the STAR example. So as Stacey said, situation, task, action, and result. And I think that's most important, because students actually do take on a lot of different projects or deliverables within their coursework. And some of those can translate very easily into a STAR method for a campus hire. Right out of college, that's what we call campus hire. So for me, I think one of the opportunities I would have loved as a student to hear more about is how important it is to really find the exact kind of task, action, result that I specifically contributed to in a capstone project. That's probably the best example that I had. But also to take those opportunities they have either in team sports, in some of the extracurricular clubs and activities that they are a part of, and find where some of those passion areas, as Stacey said from the beginning, actually came to light in the structure of a project. I think that a lot of the work that we do as either volunteers or as employees, whether it's part-time employees or full-time employees, and as students, when we're in that age range of 18 to 22, we actually are doing things that can be represented in a way that demonstrate how we tackle the work that's ahead of us. And I think the STAR method, again, is the most important way for an employer to kind of read into how do you address a situation? What kinds of organizational models do you use to say, here are the things ahead of me, the tasks? What actions do I take? What behaviors do I demonstrate as I'm taking those actions? And then how do I highlight my result, right? Am I more of a team player and I highlighted the end result as this was a team output? Do I use a lot of data to help to back up, we successfully drove 80% in improvement in this, industry we were capstone projecting for. So I think that that's absolutely a way to set a student up for success, is feeling confident in what work they've already done and how they demonstrated behaviors, actions, and results through that project or opportunity.
That's really a great example that you gave, Kelsey. I was thinking about it, and it wasn't until I got into tech that I had to start to sort of be the narrator for my own story, if that makes sense. So I think group projects are a perfect example. While we're in school and doing group projects, generally we don't like them. And probably everyone on this call was the person that took control of the group, did 90% of the work, let everyone else just sit down, I'll take care of it, and then presented, right? And we said to ourselves, at least when I go to work, I will never have to do that again. And lo and behold, that's what every day is, is working on group projects.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, I think, a narration opportunity maybe for teachers in that to say, hey, I see you're struggling a little bit with some of your group. How are you solving this? What are you going about to do this? And then helping them create that narrative for themselves to say, when I found there was conflict on my team, I stepped in to help them resolve it. And then we each had specific roles and we knew when we had accountability, things like that. I think there's this sort of overlay narration quality that really highlights well in professionalism when people get to that next stage. Benny, what about you? What are you thinking related to what teachers can do to help prepare?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to add on to that group thing because that was what I was going to say. And I think, as always, Kelsey has just said it with much, much more depth than I could possibly achieve. But what I wanted to add on to that was the idea of the roles. If Because my students, I put them into groups as well to try to address things, and a lot of the flailing about comes because of a confusion of roles and stages of the process. And I always I use a simple model, which is Edward de Bono's model, actually from lateral thinking. He called it the four phases of development are explorer, poet, judge, and soldier. And what he said is, and the simple rule is just do that role while you're in that phase. Don't bring anything else. So when you're an explorer, like that's in the beginning of the phase. For example, in my groups, that's they're doing research, right? As like your job is to just explore, not to come up with an idea, which is the poet part of it. Like stop it, like write it down, but put it away and keep exploring, keep going, go as far as you can go all the way to the top of the mountain, go all the way into the heart of the forest, right? And come back with whatever you found. And everybody on the team has they should know they're in the explorer phase, right? And then you can divide it up and say, you do the competitive research and you do the product research, whatever, but you're all still doing the explorer phase. Then you come to the poet phase, and that's the point where you're just generating ideas. And that's the fun part. And of course, like I said, you will have ideas before that, write them down, but this is the time to bring them up and to put them all out there. And again, that's not the time to say, you know what, I don't think that's going to work. That comes later. You're like, yeah, we got it. That's what the judge is all about. You sit back. That's when you sit back and you stroke your beard if you have it, and you go like, no, I don't think so. Whatever. And you establish criteria. There are laws, rules, just how judges do their thing. And then finally, you go into the soldier phase, which is where you fight for the thing that you've come up with. And again, everybody comes together to say, what's the best way in which I can get this idea to break through and be accepted by the people. So I've found that if you can break it down like that, then people can just. It's kind of the rules of the game. You can say, guys, we aren't there yet. We're still exploring. So let me do that, and it reduces some of the stress. I think otherwise, that's why it's just like people are at different phases and stages, and they have different personalities, and you just need to. It's like any game. You just need to establish the rules.
Yeah, collaboration being the key there, right?
Yeah.
None of us can do it alone, and figuring out that's a really good analogy I think you have for helping us understand how to work best within each phase. We can't be solving problems until we've identified them, and all of that.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick with you, Benny, this time, so that you get to you get to go in depth. Can you speak about the disruptive nature of the tech industry, and how might that impact a student's career plan?
Uh, yes, I think what you're really referring to is artificial intelligence. And if you're not, everybody should be thinking about that right now. And I talk to a lot of people about this, and I am really shocked by how little attention people are paying to it in the regular non-tech world, because I'm like, you guys don't get it. This isn't like whatever people think of the metaverse, or this isn't a fad. This has been around for like decades. Every company has been doing it. It just happens to have broken through now because ChatGPT has done some things that have captured the popular imagination, but it's around, and it's only going to get further and further entrenched. And what it really does is it hits at the roots of education, because, well, a lot of education, at least where I grew up, which is in India, was focused on one part of the brain, the hippocampus, the memory. It's all about like learning things and learning systems, and knowing them by heart, as we used to say, and then being able to parrot them out and appropriately. And well, computers took that away, and artificial intelligence especially is going to completely remove the need for that. It is also going to remove the need for human beings to do repetitive, monotonous, repetitive processes that require lots of data. And I'm not just talking about in the creative professions. I'm talking about like the accounting profession, or in like in an architect's office, the draftsman's job. It'll take care of all of that. So for me, what teachers really need to focus on is, I think we really need to go back to the higher faculties of human beings, which are reading this great book by the way called Program or Be Programmed by Douglas Rushkoff. And Douglas Rushkoff is a prophet of the digital age. He's been right about everything since the internet began. He talks about he uses the words like contemplation. He said, like, we have to encourage contemplation because digital systems don't encourage you to contemplate. They encourage you to do. They keep giving you tasks like, like, now post this, now like this, now do this. And the ability to step back and contemplate is when you start to do that pattern recognition that human beings do very well, and which AI is trying to do, but I don't think they can do it as well as us. Innovation, this idea of like, uh, what you get with when AI tries to innovate is hallucinations. But human beings innovate from a sense of humanity and with a sense of purpose, and they're able to come up with new ideas that actually matter if you let them. So, what I would encourage the teachers and what I try to tell my students, for example, one of the projects I give them is to create a brand of their own and to really bring it to life in every way. And they're super scared and they all hate me in the first month because they're like, we don't know how to do that. And I'm like, yes, welcome to the rest of your career. You're going to be constantly handed a bunch of things that you don't know how to do, and you're going to have to figure it out. So start with this one. But so innovation, the idea of being able to create something new by joining new things, how can you encourage that? How can you bring that about? So I think contemplation, innovation, I think the ability, and most of all, the ability to make meaning. That's something that AI does not have, and it is going to be a long time before AI understands. AI doesn't understand the meaning of what it does. It's just doing a really convincing imitation of that, which we get taken in by because human beings look for human beings in everything, and we anthropomorphize everything. But the AI doesn't really know why it's saying what it's saying. You do, I do, and I want to encourage teachers to ask students to uh, ask themselves why. The why is the thing that is missing in AI. And if we can get students to delve beneath the surface and say, don't just do the thing, tell me why you did that. What is your purpose? So to me, the ability to contemplate and connect, the ability to innovate, and the ability to make meaning, these are the kinds of faculties that the projects that teachers, and you're all much more experienced as teachers than I am, so you'll know best what kind of projects create that. But those are what I'm looking for, and those are the skills that will help you survive and thrive in the area of in the era of generative AI.
That's fantastic, Benny. I wasn't leading toward AI even in particular, but you took us straight. That was great. Very great. The why, I think, reminds me of the lean project management process, the 5 whys. We use that a lot at Amazon as well, especially when you're exploring new topics that could be disruptive, right? Really kind of questioning the way things are done. And I think if you go through why at least 5 times, you really get to a good root problem. So I would suggest, encouraging students to keep asking that why, and moving maybe away from rote memorization. I know when you're up against test scores that you have to objectively measure, sometimes you're a bit forced into that corner, but whenever you have a chance to let them explore whys and new things, I think there's great benefit in that. I can't tell you how often the best solution that any of our teams have come up with have been because someone was just really curious and kept going, that tenaciousness to keep going, whether leveraging technology or not. Obviously, I leverage AI a lot in my work too, especially writing those papers. It's really great. And today I even had to write a brief for something. I'm preparing for a new, what I call an activation between some entertainment talent. And I thought, I don't need to make this up. AI can help me, and it can give me a nice outline. All I have to do is fill in the details. Anyway, Kelsey, share your thoughts on the disruptive nature of tech and maybe how teachers can help students prepare for that.
It's a great question that I also don't think I can as passionately explain it as Benny did. But As far as a lot of my observations with tech leaders, I think that one of the biggest things, to Benny's larger point too, is that we have to lean in to those opportunities and those incoming technologies, because ultimately they're going to be, just like the internet was years ago, ways to enable a faster pace of work and better outcomes for all of us as human beings. And I think that there's a lot of disruption that will come, not just from AI, but I'm sure future technologies. And one of the things that we always try to focus on is how do we embrace that technology internally and help employees to see not only the benefit, but also what is that thing they no longer have to do because of this technology. And I think some of the points we've made already, there's a lot of work that folks don't want to do. And one of the benefits that I see in AI already is that it's going to get rid of some of those a little bit more cumbersome tasks or summaries or doc writing, even trying to summarize key points from a research paper or from my own peer feedback, for example. And I think that opportunity, when we grab onto it and we encourage a way of positive, optimistic outlook of, they're not taking this away from me, but they're adding even more space in my world to do other things that are uniquely human, that AI will never take away, the internet will never take away. Those are the things that we try to, I think, hone in on for employees and managers is what kind of positive space does this give you back? And how can you innovate and think bigger and contribute in those ways that technology will never be able to outpace you in?
That's great feedback. I think this is the type of future career conversation our societies haven't had to have in a while, right? As we think back of each of the revolutions that we've had in the workforce, this seems to be a new one, and it's tender, I think, for some folks, especially in certain industries that fear replacement. But to the point that both of you have made really clearly, let's think about how we contribute uniquely. And I think as teachers, you can help students maybe see some of their unique contributions that might add to that. I'm going to close on one note before we move into some questions and answers. I think back to my time at Amazon when I first moved into tech, and the diversity of perspectives and people in this space I found really compelling. But they all had some similar qualities, and you can add to this or disagree. I felt like there was a quality of tenaciousness, follow through, and dare I say audacity that each of these people had. They may have looked different, sounded different, approach things differently. But as I got to know each person, I had a patent when I was 14, or no, I was the top guitar player in my school, or I was homeschooled, but I joined college when I was 15. There's these sort of I think qualities that the interview process tries to drill in on, but they're really around things that actually didn't have to do so much with school, but had to do with how folks are thinking and how people are problem solving, and then this audacity to just solve a problem. And I really love that. I try and encourage that in all the students that I come across. Is if you have an idea, don't wait for a perfect time. Just see about solving it. Start researching it on your own. You would be amazed at how much you can teach yourself. And I think that carries really well into the tech space, regardless of where it is, whether it's AI, AR, VR, which is the area I came from. I'm in education, but there's also robotics. There's just so many spaces that tech touches. I don't know. Have you both had that experience? Benny, you want to take it?
Yeah, I think that's such a great word, audacity. And it goes back to, it's absolutely right. It's the audacity of believing that you can actually question something, that you can actually solve something that nobody else has solved, is the opposite of rote learning. And the educational process that instills that audacity will naturally first have a lot of mistakes that students will make. And I think that has to become part of the learning environment, that I expect you to try this and fail multiple times, but just keep going at it. And that's okay. Whereas, this is the relic of the old educational system that we've all had to grow up with, which is like, I got to be right because of the test. And you do have to be right for the test, obviously. But apart from the test, you don't have to be. But unfortunately, that's the culture that's forced on it, which is there is only one right answer, and you need to circle that like little square. Maybe, but can we give them other projects? Can we give them other ways in which we say, you know what, I'm pretty sure you're going to fail with this, but let's see how far you go. And just build that muscle, that audacity muscle is what I'm going to now call it, Stacey. That's just such an awesome phrase. I love it. That build your audacity muscle. And the way you build it is by frequently trying and failing. And then one day you won't fail, and that will be your breakthrough, and then you will be unstoppable. So I just love that.
Yay. That's mine, trademark. Go
That's
ahead, Kelsey.
No, the only thing I'd add, that tenacity is really huge, right? And constantly, whether it's you fail or whether you succeed, finding the way to just keep leaning in and moving forward. But I definitely agree with the audacity, and also just finding a way to sometimes swim outside of your lane and give permission to fail. That is something that I do agree in the education system. I didn't feel as comfortable doing that because it felt like, okay, I've just got to focus on this, and this is my homework, and this is my coursework. It is not, I'm not going to try to venture into computer science and try to help them solve a problem. But in the workspace, I think especially at Amazon, some of the best ideas we've ever had came off the side of someone's desk when they wrote a peer FAQ, which for those of you who may not be as familiar, our peer FAQ process is where we write like a press release with a bunch of questions that people would ask us, and we answer them in order to garnish our idea and to really make it whole. So I think that that's absolutely something I'd recommend, is encouraging those students to go deeper, build their idea, write it out, draw it out, speak it out, talk it out, whatever that looks like. Because again, going back to those passion areas, that's truly where you can derive a lot of energy too, even if it's not in your swim lane that you completely own.
That's so true. And I know, the incentives in schools, obviously to measure and to, produce an outcome of a grade or some sort of assessment. But maybe if there's ever little ways to encourage students to go outside of their swim lane and to do things many, 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 many times, and not necessarily look for the solution, but look at the journey. Because that journey, each of us, I am certain, have had to document in our daily work. What did you learn? What will you repeat? What will you not repeat? And we do that at the end of each project, like genuinely. After you've had some sort of big launch, we always have to have a debrief. We all call it something different, postmortem, whatever it is. And we learn from our mistakes. I'm genuinely dig into them and learn, never with a sense of blame, but always with a sense of what can we carry forward and apply to our next space. In fact, Amazon has a process where those are highlighted and shared internally. So I can learn about something, a team I'm totally unrelated to. They made a mistake. This is what happened, and this is what they learned from it. Oh, the opportunity to grow knowledge and apply that is huge. And I use that in my education practices. So as an educator, building lesson plans and all of that, and now leveraging technology within that has been a really fun process. But I'm essentially borrowing from design elements. I'm borrowing from engineering elements and then pulling that into whatever I'm working on, which has been great. I think we're rounding up now to the Q&A process. So Ashley has said, go ahead and mark stuff in the chat. I saw one question early on. Let me grab it here. Irene, what is the thinking on hybrid work? Some in office and some at home. Would either of you like to take that one on?
Oh, I'm happy to. I'm very passionate in this area. First of all, I think that this is where I'm going to get really, really preachy. It's most important that you work backwards from the individual. What works best for them and what kind of environment are they going to be most productive in is truly where I try to encourage leaders to look, because everyone is different. Some people love the environment, the collaborative nature, and thrive in an office setting. Other people actually enjoy the privacy of an individual space, and the work that they're required to do needs that enclosed space that's away from other people. So I think a hybrid is likely the future if you had to boil it down to one approach. But I absolutely encourage leaders to look at both directions. There's a ton of benefit in remote work. There's also a ton of benefit for certain employees in office work. And that hybrid approach is a nice middle ground if you do want to enforce collaboration in office and you also want to enable productivity at home.
That's great. That's great. Benny, any thoughts?
I'm going to give the worst answer in the world, which is it depends. But it depends on a couple of things. I think it depends on the kind of work that you're doing. Essentially, for me, and in my field, which is a creative field, I find and this might also be my personality, but I thrive on human connection, and Meta has flip flopped on this from going completely remote during the pandemic and being very understanding about it for a really long time to coming back pretty much the other way and you know kind of really strongly urging most employees to be in the office. And by be in the office, it's still, to Irene's question, it's still a hybrid. They're not saying you have to be there 5 days a week, but a minimum of 3 days. Because I think the metrics of the company, and I'm not in HR, so I don't know that, but I've heard what they've talked about is there is a clear impact on productivity, but also on long-term team dynamics and long-term success. That
Yep.
There are um, there are strong ties and weak ties, as Robin Dunbar, the sociologist, talks about, and you need both. You need, and the weak ties that come. The weak ties are actually not weak. It's a terrible name for them. They're the kind that enable that kind of get us to open the door for somebody or just say hello to somebody in passing. And psychologists and sociologists have said that actually has an incredible effect on the brain because we are social animals. And whether we like it or not, it is, even if I'm kind of introverted and I'm not, you may not be as gabby as I am, like I will chat with anybody all the time, all day long. I get it that most people are not like me. Most people are like, no, I actually would like to be. But even so, you can't change your brain. It makes a difference that you see other people and that you just nod and smile at them. So to me, I think it's even beyond like what's productive for the organization. I think at heart it's like what is healthy for a human being, and I think that hybrid mix is healthy. One just has to learn how to find the right balance that works for you. And the second part of it, the second part of the depends is what is the work that you're doing. So when I'm at the initial stages, when I'm at the explorer and poet stages, for example, of a project, I like to be with people because I want to generate as many different perspectives and as many different ideas as possible. But then I do want to go away from the noise, and that's probably when I'll be at home and I will just contemplate, which is what contemplation is so important. It's the ability to do that postmortem, or what we call it, Stacey, is the post game analysis. So it's not quite as macabre as that, but you should be able to go away after you've had that exciting brainstorm workshop, which I hold frequently, to say, well, what really came through in that. And so I think it's a question of balancing it out,
Mhm.
but starting by understanding that human beings are 60% of our brain is dedicated to social processing. So
I love
uh,
that. Both
with that,
incredible points. I think one thing I'll add to it is hybrid's probably not going away. And I'm not sure that any of us were taught how to manage ourselves when we aren't around others. And I think that that's a skill that could be very valuable when you're alone, how to manage your time, right? At the beginning of the pandemic, at the Amazon pace, I was not taking bathroom breaks. I wasn't getting up from my desk for 12 hours. I mean, a very long time because I just took meeting after meeting after meeting in each time zone. Um, and there's a lot, I think, to learn for each of us on how to work remotely, also how to pace your projects. There's the Pomodoro method. There's all sorts of different opportunities to do this. And I'm not sure that employers have done a lot to help teach people how to work remotely, but there's a lot to be done there. And then Jeff, to your comment in the chat, schools might consider modeling after a hybrid model as well to help students know. I know in my daughter's school, they do have the last 2 years optional community college option, and we're looking into that for her just because of various other reasons, sports and that sort of thing. But I think you're right. As much as teachers can help them start like that transition from middle school to high school, where you go from 1 or 2 classes to 6 classes and managing your own schedule and figuring out how to make it work. I think there's something to be said on adding in that little bit of remote, how to demonstrate productivity when people aren't seeing you be productive. There are things you can do to sort of demonstrate that you are being effective and productive, even if people don't see you. So that's something I think to think about. Another question came in from Leonard. Are you seeing diversity in the pipeline of candidates interviewing for entry-level tech jobs? I'm sure Kelsey's got stats.
We have certainly invested in this. There's a lot of intentionality in this space across tech. I'd say Amazon is really what I know. There's also, I think, a large mental model shift, which is how do we not only ensure that we are connecting to those candidates, but that we're retaining them and that we're giving them opportunity within the organization to continue to flourish and grow in their career. Because I think that this, diversity of thought is one component of it, but diversity of experience is really what that pipeline can bring in. So I have seen a huge shift in this. Again, larger numbers, but of course, never the numbers that are going to be as perfect as we want. The leaders that we have are really, really invested in this, and that is what ultimately changes organizations, is reflecting the people to the communities we service.
Benny.
Great. I mean, I don't have anything to add because Kelsey has so much experience in this field, but I do think one of the things that Meta does great is, to Kelsey's point, is not just bringing the people in, but then ensuring that they have the support groups and that they have the mentorship. And I actually, the one time I worked on an HR program was exactly that, where we would find people who were interested in something but didn't have the experience, didn't come from conventional backgrounds, and we would place them in a group where they could gain that. And I think that that's really important. I don't think you don't just bring them in and leave them to sink or swim.
We know that doesn't work, in fact. I think, are we wrapping up, Ashley? Can I add some final comments on this?
We're at time, but this is such a good conversation. We could go on and on. It's wonderful.
I'll wrap up by saying one of the things that you can help your students do is to understand how to respond to the job application or the resume. I think one of the areas that's an opportunity for almost every profession is writing job descriptions that appeal to diverse audiences. Often they appear to a single audience and people will opt out ahead of time. That doesn't sound like something I can do. I can't demonstrate that they do this. And this is all false. Tell them to do it absolutely anyways. And maybe what they need is just help in understanding to be audacious and know that they can do that job regardless of what they look like or how they identify. I think those are all really important things. And recruiters are the biggest part in tech of getting the right audiences in. And I take as much opportunity as I can to mentor. So I think any chance that anyone has to connect with someone in tech, feel free to send students my way. LinkedIn is probably the best professional space to find us. But I think each of us on this panel would be happy to help.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having us. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you, Ashley.
Stacey, Kelsey, Benny, what a wonderful conversation. It was so thoughtful. You touched on so many aspects of this space that I think our teachers will really find insightful, and you also helped translate it to what they can do in the classroom. So I really appreciate all of you. Thank you for being here today. And thank you to all of our teachers who are here. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week and weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye.
all.
Thank you.